I want you to imagine something for a second. Let's say you've just moved to the United States.
Oh, yeah, that is a huge
Right, a
transition.
massive transition. Like maybe you're coming from Germany or, I don't know, Japan or France,
Mm.
and you find yourself in the American Midwest.
A very specific kind of environment, for sure.
Exactly. So you pull your car into a gas station, you step out, you grab the pump, and you just, minding your own business.
Just trying to get gas and get on with your day.
Yeah, it's quiet. And then out of nowhere, this complete stranger on the other side of the pump,
Uh-oh.
right? Let's picture him. He's maybe in his 50s, wearing this faded baseball cap, filling up his truck.
Hmm.
He looks over at you, makes direct eye contact, and just says, "Beautiful day, huh?"
And for a lot of people who are newly arriving in this environment, that initial overture just triggers an immediate internal alarm system.
Like a literal panic button.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah.
because you're trying to figure out the motive, right? Like, what is the motive behind this interaction before you can even process the actual words he's saying?
And before you can even formulate like a polite, non-committal nod or something, the conversation just totally takes off.
It accelerates so fast.
It really does. He's asking where you're from, and the sheer volume of data that gets exchanged in like the following 90 seconds is just wild.
It's a massive data dump.
Yes. In a minute and a half, you find out his daughter just got accepted into some nursing program.
Right.
You learn he drove through your home country on a backpacking trip back in like 1987.
You get his whole life story.
Very much. And you are made intimately aware that he thinks this month's gas prices are an absolute outrage.
Naturally.
And then the pump clicks. He looks at you, says, "Take care now," with this incredibly genuine warmth, gets in his truck, and just vanishes forever.
And you both implicitly understand that you will literally never see each other again.
Never.
The whole interaction is completely sealed in that 90-second bubble.
Which is the part that creates such a profound dissonance, I think. Because if you grew up almost anywhere outside of North America, this whole gas station interaction is just baffling.
It feels like an anomaly.
Exactly. You're standing there thinking, wait, why did that stranger talk to me? Like, what did he actually want?
Is this a scam?
Is it a scam, or is this really just how people operate here?
And that dissonance, that's really our primary mission for this deep dive today. Because to an American, that interaction is not an anomaly at all.
No, it's just Tuesday.
Right. It's the invisible water they swim in every single day. So we are going to unpack the specific psychology, the cultural history, and, the highly structured, unwritten rules that dictate why Americans talk to strangers.
Which is so fascinating.
It is. And more importantly, we want to look at what this habit reveals about how societies build trust.
And how we navigate shared spaces.
Yeah.
Which matters to you, the person listening to this, on a very practical level.
Absolutely.
Because, if you're an English learner trying to decode this culture, understanding this is basically your map to avoiding social landmines.
It's crucial.
Or, if you're a native speaker who effortlessly has 50 of these interactions a week, but still feels somewhat lonely or disconnected from your community, we're going to explore the mechanics behind that feeling too.
Because that's a huge paradox we need to get into.
Right. Or, hey, if you're just someone trying to survive a painfully chatty elevator ride, we are going to decode the social matrix happening around you every day.
Because once you see the underlying code, it totally changes how you view public space. None of this behavior is random.
None of it.
None of it. Americans initiate these interactions in waiting rooms, in checkout lines, in laundromats.
And famously on airplanes.
Oh, yes. Sometimes sustaining a conversation for a 3-hour flight.
Which is my personal nightmare, but yes. Okay, let's unpack this, because that brings up a really foundational question about human psychology.
Okay, let's hear it.
Do Americans actually genuinely like doing this? Or is it just some exhausting societal obligation?
That is the million-dollar question. And to get to the bottom of that, we have to look at this fascinating 2014 study out of the University of Chicago.
A commuter study,
Yeah, led by Nicholas Epley. They decided to test this specific impulse by going into the Chicago transit system, like the commuter rail lines and the L train.
Which, if you've ever been on a morning commuter train, is not a chatty place.
Exactly. They effectively forced commuters to start conversations with the strangers sitting next to them.
Just thinking about that gives me anxiety.
Right. If you consider the typical atmosphere of a morning commuter train, asking people to break that silence sounds incredibly invasive. The baseline expectation in that environment is, well, complete isolation.
Head down, headphones in, don't look at anybody.
Precisely. And the commuters themselves completely agreed with that assessment.
Okay, so what did they predict would happen?
Well, When the researchers asked the participants to forecast how the experiment would go before they actually did it, the predictions were universally dismal.
Like they thought it would be a disaster.
Total disaster. The commuters were convinced it would be awkward, highly unpleasant, and they were absolutely certain that the stranger, the person reading a book or staring out the window would deeply resent the intrusion.
Which makes sense. I mean, I would think that too.
Most people would. The researchers were tapping into this really profound psychological concept known as the empathy gap.
The empathy gap. Okay, break that down for us.
So humans suffer from this remarkably consistent systemic failure when it comes to predicting how an experience will feel when we aren't currently immersed in that state.
Meaning we're bad at guessing our future feelings.
Yes, we miscalculate our own future emotions, but more importantly, we completely miscalculate the internal states of others.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So in the context of the commuter train, we look at the stranger sitting next to us and we view them as a closed system.
We see the headphones, we see the downward gaze,
Yes,
and our brain translates that as a literal do not disturb sign.
exactly. We assume their outward posture reflects this deep internal desire to be left alone.
When really we're just projecting our own anxiety onto them.
You hit the nail on the head. What the empathy gap obscures is that the person across from us might also be experiencing, mild boredom or a bit of isolation on a really monotonous commute.
They might actually want to talk.
They might genuinely welcome a brief, low-stakes moment of human connection, but that anticipatory fear creates a massive barrier.
It stops us before we even try.
Exactly. It prevents us from even testing the waters.
But the reality of the study completely shattered that barrier.
It completely reversed the expectations. When the commuters actually pushed past their anxiety and initiated the conversation, the results contradicted every single negative prediction.
Wow. Every single one.
Pretty much. Almost every conversation was pleasant. The strangers were highly receptive.
That is so wild to me.
But here's the most striking data point. Both parties, not just the person who started, but both parties reported feeling significantly better, with a higher mood and a better sense of well-being after the interaction than they had before it started.
So they basically cured their morning commute depression just by saying hi.
Sort of, yeah. The mechanism of human connection naturally takes over once that initial friction is overcome.
But wait, so even after having a great chat, there was this weird catch, right?
Yes. The study revealed something even more fascinating about our cognitive stubbornness.
Because this is the part that seems like a literal glitch in the human operating system.
It really does.
Even after having a demonstrable positive interaction, these exact same commuters still predicted that their next attempt to talk to a stranger would be negative.
Yeah, it's wild. It is as if the brain flat out refuses to update its predictive model.
It's like we have cultural amnesia. Our fear of strangers is practically bulletproof against actual recent evidence.
That's a great way to put it. The brain heavily weights the potential risk of social rejection way over the potential reward of a pleasant chat.
Because rejection hurts.
Right. Evolutionarily, rejection is dangerous. So the discomfort of talking to strangers comes almost entirely from the anticipation, not the actual execution.
The buildup is worse than the event.
Exactly. But overcoming that cognitive hurdle requires immense conscious effort for most humans.
Okay, so if the human brain is hardwired to dread the anticipation of stranger interaction, how does an entire society function by doing the exact opposite? Like, how did America hack this?
Well, the culture itself serves as a bypass
It's
mechanism.
a bypass mechanism.
Yeah, American culture hasn't altered human neurobiology, obviously. Rather, it has so thoroughly normalized the behavior that it artificially lowers that internal barrier.
No, you see.
You don't have to summon a massive amount of courage to speak to the person next to you at the bus stop because the societal default has pre-granted you the permission to do so.
The permission is already there.
Right, whereas in most other global cultures, that permission must be painstakingly earned over time.
But cultures don't just, invent these bypass mechanisms out of thin air. There has to be some environmental pressure that forces that adaptation.
Oh, absolutely.
So to answer why America collectively built this specific social technology, we have to travel back in time a bit.
We do, and the foundational text for this, the one we really need to look at, is Frederick Jackson Turner's 1893 Frontier Thesis.
The frontier thesis, okay.
Yeah. Turner argued that the American character, its optimism, its restlessness, and especially its social dynamics, was fundamentally shaped by the experience of the ever-expanding westward frontier.
So we're talking about the 18th and 19th centuries here.
Yes, we are looking at a population in perpetual motion across a massive, frankly dangerous continent.
Covered wagons, the whole deal.
Exactly. And the defining feature of that movement was the constant, unending arrival in new spaces where the settlers knew absolutely no one.
Right. The concept of the established village just did not exist out there.
It couldn't exist. The person steering the covered wagon next to yours was a stranger. The family claiming the land over the ridge, strangers.
The itinerant trader passing through, complete stranger.
Everyone was a stranger.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. In that incredibly harsh, unforgiving environment, those strangers were not just, passing vases.
No, not.
They were your only potential lifeline.
Yes, it was a matter of life and death.
Like if your wagon broke an axle or a harsh winter hit early, you couldn't rely on some established community network. You couldn't call your cousin.
Right. The stranger in the dust cloud approaching you was literally the only help available for 100 miles in any direction.
Yeah.
And that extreme vulnerability dictated an entirely new set of social rules.
You had to.
Making a connection in that environment was not a matter of polite etiquette. It wasn't about being nice. It was a hardcore survival imperative.
Survival, not nicety.
Exactly. You had to rapidly assess every unknown person you encountered. You needed to establish instantly, are you trustworthy? Can we cooperate to fend off a threat or build shelter?
Or like, what crucial information do you hold about the trail ahead that I don't know?
Yes. Information was currency.
It totally makes me think of a video game mechanic.
Oh, how so?
Well, like in a standard role-playing game, you might spend 50 hours doing minor quests for a faction to slowly level up your reputation and earn their trust.
Right. The slow grind.
Exactly. And that is the traditional European village model. But on the frontier, you didn't have 50 hours. You didn't have 5 years to slowly level up a friendship.
No, your wagon was leaving tomorrow at dawn.
Yes. You needed a fast-track cheat code to bypass the slow trust-building phase and establish an immediate functional alliance.
I love that analogy. The fast-track cheat code became the cultural template. The physical environment actively selected for quick warmth, openness, and immediate friendliness because permanence was practically non-existent.
You had to be friendly fast, or you might not survive.
Exactly. The habit of offering a broad smile to a newcomer, using a first name immediately, asking direct questions, all of that is the direct cultural inheritance of that frontier survival mechanism.
Wow. But the physical geography of the frontier is really only half the equation, right?
Correct.
Because you have another massive historical engine supercharging this dynamic at the exact same time.
And what's that?
Immigration, the classic melting pot.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to overlay the reality of mass immigration on top of the frontier movement.
Because America was being rapidly populated by successive waves of immigrants from vastly different global cultures.
Right. You had German, Irish, Italian, Chinese, Polish, and Mexican populations all arriving and suddenly finding themselves sharing the same tenement buildings.
The same factory floors.
It's the same city block.
It's this incredible collision of people who do not share a spoken language.
They don't share a religious history either?
No, and they have entirely different assumptions about how a society even operates. The potential for extreme tribalism and conflict there is just massive.
Oh, it's highly volatile. Without a unifying mechanism, that environment is a powder keg. They desperately needed a shared social script to navigate daily life.
They needed a bridge.
Right, a behavioral bridge that could bypass those immense cultural and linguistic barriers. And what they developed is what we can call a social Esperanto.
Social Esperanto, that is such a brilliant way to frame it, because Esperanto was that language invented in the late 1800s to be a universal second language.
Exactly. It was designed to foster global harmony by giving everyone a shared tongue.
So in the American context, friendly small talk functioned as that universal technology.
It did. Phrases like, nice weather we're having, or where are you from, operated as a universal adapter. It allowed a profoundly diverse, constantly shifting population to acknowledge one another safely.
To say, I see you, and I am not a threat.
Precisely. When literally every single person in your neighborhood is a stranger from somewhere else, the very concept of the stranger loses its inherent threat.
Because everyone is in the same boat.
Right. You are all navigating the unknown together, so establishing a baseline of verbal goodwill becomes the most logical, practical strategy.
Okay, so the combination of the moving frontier and massive waves of diverse immigration creates this very clear evolutionary pathway for this behavior.
It's a perfect storm.
But that leads to such an obvious question. What happens to human psychology and societies that lack those specific historical engines?
Ah.
Like what happens in places where the geography hasn't expanded in 1,000 years?
To understand that contrast, we have to look at the settled society model.
A settled society model.
Yeah. If you examine the historical reality of rural Europe, Japan, or many parts of Asia and the Middle East, the environment is completely inverted.
Inverted how?
Well, in these societies, families have lived in the exact same villages, farming the exact same valleys for centuries.
Generation after generation.
Exactly. The social fabric isn't being hastily woven on the fly to survive the winter. It has been densely, intricately woven over dozens of generations.
So everyone in that environment knows literally everyone else.
Yes, they know your lineage, your family's reputation, your role in the community.
So in a settled society, a stranger approaching you isn't a vital source of information.
No, and they aren't an exciting opportunity for connection either. A stranger is, by definition, an anomaly.
And anomalies are inherently suspicious.
Highly suspicious. If you already possess the complete social network required to survive and thrive, an unknown person initiating contact prompts an immediate defensive question.
Which is,
what do they want from me?
wow, yeah, that makes total sense.
Mm.
And this neatly explains that classic cultural comparison between Germany and America, doesn't it?
It does perfectly. The common observation is that in Germany, the wall around an individual is incredibly high.
Very thick walls.
Right. Making a friend requires a tremendous amount of time and effort. But, and this is key, once you breach that wall and make a German friend, you have secured a deeply loyal, permanent relationship.
Friends for life.
Exactly. In contrast, making a friend in America is instantaneous and effortless, but those friendships are frequently described as shallow and ephemeral.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
Right. That observation highlights the divergence in social utility. And the crucial analytical step here, the thing everyone needs to remember, is realizing that neither system is inherently wrong.
Or morally superior.
Exactly.
They're just completely different tools for different environments.
Mm.
Like, if you live in a highly mobile society like the U.S., where people relocate for college and then change cities every 5 years for their careers.
Which happens all the time.
Right. Deploying the German model would be disastrous.
It would completely isolate you.
Yeah, if you required 5 years to build a friendship, but you moved every 4 years, you would live your entire life in total isolation.
Exactly. You require the American tool of rapid, instant connection to survive that level of mobility.
But the German model is perfectly adapted to a society with deep, stable, geographically rooted networks.
Because the investment required to form a new relationship is high, reflecting the anticipated permanence of that bond.
Okay, so that's Germany. But when we shift our focus over to Japan, we see how spatial constraints push this settled society model into an even more formalized territory.
Oh, Japan is a phenomenal case study in the architecture of social boundaries.
Break that down for us.
Well, they operate on a profound, deeply ingrained cultural distinction between uchi and soto.
Uchi and Soto.
Right. Uchi translates roughly to the inside your established in-group.
So family, close friends, coworkers.
Yes, your immediate colleagues. And within the uchi, Japanese social behavior is incredibly warm, deeply supportive, and highly interconnected.
Very communal.
Very. But the rules flip completely when you deal with soto.
And Soto is the outside.
Yes. Soto represents the outside strangers, the outgroup. Toward the Soto, the default behavioral expectation is formal, distant, and carefully bounded.
Keep your distance.
Exactly. You can see this most clearly in their public transit system. The Tokyo subway operates on a strict, assumed social contract.
Which is so different from the L train in Chicago.
Entirely different. In a densely packed island nation like Japan, public space is shared space. And respect is demonstrated precisely by not imposing your social needs on others.
So it's about making yourself as small as possible socially.
Right. You maintain silence, you keep your physical distance, and you aggressively avoid unsolicited eye contact.
Wow. It is the absolute inverse of the American assumption.
It really is.
Because in America, public space is viewed as a canvas for connection. Like, offering a friendly comment to a stranger in a grocery line is seen as offering a small gift of acknowledgement.
I see you. You matter.
Yeah. But in Japan, injecting your personal presence into someone else's quiet commute would be viewed as a serious imposition.
It wouldn't necessarily be interpreted as openly hostile, but it would be viewed as erratic and genuinely strange.
Because it violates the core, unwritten rule of how shared space is preserved.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have the American canvas, the German wall, the Japanese boundaries.
Hmm.
What about France? Because France has a completely different philosophical roadblock to the American script.
They do, and it's fascinating. It's rooted in the French concept of intimité.
Intimité, so intimacy.
Right, but it's deeper than just the translation. The French resistance to small talk is not rooted in coldness, which is a common misconception.
People often think Parisians are just rude.
Right, but it's actually heavily rooted in a cultural premium placed on authenticity. French social warmth is reserved because they deeply value intimité, genuine closeness, private knowledge, and true understanding of another human being.
So small talk feels fake to them.
To a French sensibility, the American habit of exchanging personal details with a gas station attendant feels slightly vulgar.
Vulgar, wow.
Yeah. It feels like a shallow performance of friendliness devoid of the actual substance that defines a real connection.
Okay, the analogy that perfectly captures this friction, and I love this from the research, is thinking of American warmth to a French person as a counterfeit dollar bill.
Yes, the counterfeit bill metaphor, it's perfect.
It looks exactly like the real thing, right? It has the right color, the right markings, the right texture.
It feels like real friendliness.
But because it is being casually handed to a complete stranger, the French instinct is that there is no actual value backing it up.
There's no gold in the reserve.
Exactly. It is performed intimacy, which they often view as more offensive than simply maintaining a formal, polite distance.
They'd rather you just be distant and honest than warm and fake.
Right. Don't hand me fake money.
The counterfeit bill metaphor explains the persistent cultural friction beautifully. French visitors so often describe Americans as superficial or false.
But the Americans aren't actually being insincere in that moment, are they?
No, they are fulfilling a cultural script. But within the French framework, that level of instant warmth must be earned over time to be considered genuine. It is a profound misunderstanding based on entirely different definitions of what the baseline of social interaction should be.
It's like two people playing different sports on the same field.
Exactly.
And then caught somewhere in the middle of these extremes, you have the British.
Yes. The British represent a fascinating structural anomaly in all this.
Because generally speaking, Britain is not a nation of stranger talkers.
No, they definitely are not. The classic demonstration of this is the London Tube.
Oh, yeah.
A ride on the Underground is this elaborate, highly choreographed, silent performance of not noticing the person whose shoulder is physically pressed against yours.
It's an art form, really.
It is. Commuters will stare intently at advertisements, they'll read a novel, or they'll just focus deeply on their own shoes to avoid acknowledging the humanity mere inches away from them.
But the British culture realized that total suppression isn't sustainable, right? They built a pressure release valve.
They did. They constructed what we can term an architecture of permission.
An architecture of permission. I love that phrasing.
The British have culturally sanctioned highly specific contexts where the standard rules of distance are temporarily suspended.
Like queuing.
Queuing is a minor one, yeah. You are permitted to quietly commiserate with a stranger about the length of the line. But the most prominent, monumental example is the pub.
The pub.
The British pub is an architectural institution specifically designed to grant people permission to talk to strangers.
So the building itself gives you permission.
Exactly. The physical layout of the bar, the culture of standing rather than sitting at isolated tables, the tradition of buying rounds, the entire environment is engineered to lower the barrier.
That makes so much sense.
Inside the pub, the social rules relax. But the moment you step back out onto the pavement, the barrier is immediately re-erected.
Back to staring at your shoes.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you find yourself thrust into the American system, whether you are an immigrant navigating a new life, or a tourist, or just an introverted native trying to survive a trip to the hardware store, how do you actually execute this social Esperanto?
That's the practical side of this, right?
Because to an outsider, it looks entirely spontaneous and chaotic. but it is actually a highly structured, predictable game.
It is incredibly structured. The spontaneity is a complete illusion.
Really, a complete illusion.
Yes, American small talk almost universally follows a rigid 5-step script.
Like steps.
And once you understand the mechanics of the script, you can navigate almost any public interaction seamlessly.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics. Walk us through it.
The process always begins with step 1, the opener.
The opener.
This is almost exclusively an environmental observation. Something like, can you believe this weather? Or is this line always moving this slow?
Which is safe.
The brilliance of the environmental opener is its absolute safety. It requires absolutely zero emotional obligation.
Because you're both stuck in the same weather or the same line.
Right. You are both physically present in the situation being referenced, so the topic is inherently neutral.
It is a low-stakes test. Like if I say, wow, it's really pouring out there, and you just grunt and look at your phone, the interaction safely aborts.
Exactly. No one loses face. The rejection is minimal.
But if you reply with a full sentence, we move to step 2.
Step 2, the warm-up.
The warm-up. Okay, what's that?
The warm-up is a brief, usually meaningless back-and-forth building on the opener. So I say, yeah, I heard it's supposed to rain all week, and you say, crazy, right?
Okay, so just filler.
The actual semantic content here is completely irrelevant noise. You're simply establishing a mutual willingness to engage in the interaction.
Like pinging a server to see if the connection is stable.
That's a perfect technical analogy, yes.
And once the server pings back successfully, we hit step 3, which is where the cultural divergence becomes glaring, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Step 3 is the pivot.
The pivot.
This is where one person moves the conversation from the safe environmental topic to a direct personal inquiry. So, where are you from originally? Or what do you do for a living?
See, this is the exact moment the script feels highly invasive to outsiders.
It feels like a massive leap.
It really does. Like if you come from a settled society, asking someone, what do you do? After 90 seconds of chatting about the rain feels incredibly aggressive.
It can feel very jarring.
It feels like asking for their bank routing number. It completely violates the boundary between public and private information.
It feels like an overstep, for sure. But within the American context, the intention is not to extract deep intimacy.
Then what is the intention?
The pivot operates as a rapid scanning mechanism, and it leads directly to step 4, the connection point.
The connection point.
Right. The entire purpose of asking, what do you do, is to hunt for shared ground.
Okay, give us an example.
If you reply, I work in software design, and the stranger says, oh, my nephew just started a coding boot camp, the system registers a match.
Ding, ding, ding.
Exactly. You have established a temporary connection point.
It justifies the existence of the conversation.
Yes.
But wait, what if you don't find a connection point? Like if I say, I'm an actuary, and they have absolutely no idea what to do with that information.
That happens all the time. And if there's no match, the script naturally dictates a winding down, which brings us to the final and perhaps most crucial step.
Step 5.
Step 5, the warm close. American stranger conversations almost universally conclude with a statement that sounds deeply personal, yet carries absolute finality.
Like what?
Like, take care now, or have a great rest of your week, good luck with the new job.
Even though both participants are entirely aware they will never cross paths again.
Ever. Never again. And this is vital for observers to understand. The warmth of that closing statement is not fraudulent.
It's not the counterfeit bill.
In the American mind, no. It is a genuine expression of goodwill generated by a successful, albeit brief, connection. In that specific micro moment, the sentiment is real.
The relationship was authentic. It simply had a predetermined lifespan of 3 minutes.
Exactly. It lived and died in 3 minutes, but it was real while it lasted.
Now, we do need to add nuance here, because America is a massive geographic entity, and it is not a monolith.
Definitely not.
While the 5-step script is the foundation, there are distinct regional dialects to this small talk that totally change how the game is played.
Oh, the regional variations are fascinating. They are heavily influenced by local history and infrastructure.
Let's start with the South.
Right. If you look at the American South, you are encountering the extreme, maximized end of the hospitality spectrum. It is a deeply embedded cultural mandate.
The Southern hospitality stereotype is real.
It is based in reality, yes.
Yeah.
People will literally wave at you from their porches as you drive past.
Even if they don't know your car.
Exactly. And the conversations in line at the grocery store will be longer, slower, and significantly more detailed.
That agrarian history, right? Where the physical distance between farms was vast. So taking the time to engage deeply with whoever crossed your path was highly valued.
Precisely. Now contrast that with moving up to the Midwest, which is famous for Minnesota nice.
Minnesota nice. How does that differ from Southern hospitality?
The Midwest dialect is characterized by relentless, cheerful politeness and a very accessible surface warmth. They will absolutely run the five-step script with you at the gas station,
With a smile.
always with a smile. However, the sociological critique of the Midwest is that while the surface is incredibly frictionless and friendly, penetrating that polite surface to form a deep, vulnerable, lasting friendship can actually be exceedingly difficult.
Oh, that's interesting. So the politeness acts as both a welcome mat and a shield.
That's a great way to put it. It keeps interaction smooth, but it keeps people at a certain distance.
Wow. Okay, let's contrast that with New York City. Because New York has a global reputation for being abrasive or like actively rude.
Right, the rude New Yorker trope.
But anyone who actually understands the city knows that isn't functionally true, right?
Not at all. The reputation for rudeness is a complete misinterpretation of their specific dialect.
So what's their dialect?
The New York dialect of stranger interaction is dictated by hyper-dense pedestrian infrastructure.
Millions of people walking everywhere.
Right. When millions of people are sharing narrow sidewalks, time and physical space become the most valuable currencies. Therefore, their script is based entirely on efficiency.
Efficiency over warmth.
It's transactional, but it's highly cooperative. A New Yorker will give you impeccably precise subway directions without breaking their stride.
Or they'll wordlessly grab the other end of a stroller to help you haul it up a flight of subway stairs.
Yes, but, and here's the key, they will not engage in the warm-up step about the weather while they do it.
They strip out the ornamental steps of the script.
Exactly. The interaction happens at a sprint. It is not unfriendly. It is a highly adapted form of civic cooperation that respects everyone's lack of time.
I will help you, but I will not waste your time or mine.
Exactly.
And finally, you have the West Coast, specifically Los Angeles.
LA operates on a dialect heavily shaped by its dominant industry, which is entertainment.
The Hollywood effect.
Right. The warmth and openness are highly prevalent, but the interactions are frequently operating on dual tracks.
Dual tracks, meaning what?
Because it is a company town where serendipitous networking can alter a career trajectory overnight, the scanning mechanism of the pivot step 3 is highly active.
What do you do? Takes on a whole new meaning.
Exactly. Every casual conversation in a coffee shop carries the slight subtext of a potential professional connection. The warmth is genuine, but it is often deeply strategic.
Always be networking.
Pretty much.
So, knowing all this, how do you practically navigate these waters, particularly if you're an English learner listening to this?
It's a vital skill to learn.
Because misinterpreting these cues doesn't just lead to awkwardness, it can cause total conversational breakdown.
It really can.
We have to decode what might be the most dangerous phrase in the English language.
How are you?
How are you? It's a trap.
It is a profound linguistic trap for non-native speakers. If you translate it literally, it sounds like a direct, compassionate inquiry into your mental and physical well-being.
Right. How am I? Let me tell you.
But in the American conversational script, when it's delivered in passing, it has been entirely stripped of its literal meaning.
Completely stripped.
It functions exclusively as a greeting. It is the functional equivalent of the word hello.
So the entire expected scripted exchange is literally just, how are you? Answered by, fine, thanks. How are you?
Yes, that's the whole transaction.
If you pause and treat it as a genuine inquiry, like if you say, well, honestly, my lower back is really acting up and I'm feeling a bit existentially adrift regarding my career today.
You induce immediate social panic in the American.
You literally crash the operating system.
You really do, because they deployed a scripted greeting and you responded with a medical and psychological diagnosis.
But wait, the nuance lies in the context, right, Tara? Because Americans do ask that question genuinely sometimes.
They do. And it all comes down to physical signals. If that exact same American stops walking, turns their physical body toward you, makes sustained eye contact, lowers their tone, and asks, how are you doing? The meaning fundamentally shifts.
The physical context and the duration transform the phrase.
Exactly. It goes from a meaningless greeting into a genuine, intimate question.
Okay, so what are the specific physical signals that dictate whether someone wants to engage in the five-step script at all, or if they're broadcasting do not disturb?
The macro signals are highly consistent. If an American is open to interaction, they will hold eye contact for a fraction of a second longer than is strictly necessary for navigation.
Just a slight lingering look.
Right. They will physically open their posture, angling their shoulders toward the room rather than a wall. A smile might linger slightly.
Or they do the generalized comment thing.
Yes, the most obvious signal. Making a generalized comment to no one in particular, like sighing and saying, "Boy, it sure is hot in here."
Which is an open invitation for anyone in the vicinity to pick up the opener.
Exactly. Now, conversely, the do not disturb signals are equally overt.
Headphones in the ears.
Headphones are the universal block, eyes locked downwards on a smartphone screen, the body physically angled away from the crowd.
And if you offer an opener to someone doing that,
They will provide a short, one-word response and actively fail to return the serve with a follow-up question. The entire social matrix functions smoothly only because both sides generally read and respect these microsignals.
see, there is a strong temptation, especially from observers coming from settled, deeply rooted cultures, to dismiss all of this American small talk as inherently shallow.
It's a very common critique.
To argue that because it doesn't involve deep vulnerability, it is valueless. But looking at the mechanics of it, small talk is the essential lubricant of social infrastructure.
It truly is.
It transforms a sterile, tense waiting room from a collection of isolated, silent ghosts into a temporary, functioning human community.
It reduces the inherent friction of sharing physical space. And for English learners, our sources highlight a massive, often overlooked utility here.
Which is,
Small talk is where the actual living language resides. The English deployed in these brief interactions is not the rigid, formal English found in grammar textbooks.
it's messy.
It is rapid, it is heavily idiomatic, it drops syllables, and it relies intensely on tone, pacing, and shared environmental context.
So the practical takeaway for you listening is to stop viewing these interactions as intimidating tests.
Yes. Start viewing them as free, completely unrehearsed language laboratories.
I love that. A free language lab.
If you are learning English, you should actively seek out the script. When the man at the gas station opens with, "Beautiful day, huh?" he is not acting as an examiner demanding grammatical
She's
perfection.
not grading you.
Not at all. He is offering a remarkably low-stakes, highly forgiving environment for practice. He does not care if you conjugate the verb incorrectly. He is merely offering a fleeting human moment.
And engaging in that moment allows you to absorb the cultural cadence and the language simultaneously.
It's the best practice you can get.
But, okay, for all the charm and utility of this social technology, we have to examine the systemic vulnerabilities it creates,
We do.
because there is a dark side to relying so heavily on rapid, shallow connection. And to understand it, we need to introduce a sociological concept from 1973 that initially sounds like a paradox.
The strength of weak ties.
The strength of weak ties.
It is a foundational theory developed by sociologist Mark Granovetter, and he fundamentally altered how we analyze social networks.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Granovetter posited that our weak ties, meaning our casual acquaintances, the barista we chat with every Tuesday, the neighbor down the hall, the parent we nod to at the playground.
The people we kind of know but don't know now.
Right. He argued that these weak ties are actually vastly more valuable for specific outcomes than our strong ties, our immediate family, and our best friends.
See, the initial reaction to that theory is just pure confusion.
It sounds backwards.
It really does. How could the guy I occasionally talk to at the dog park possibly be more valuable to my life than my best friend who knows literally everything about me?
It comes down to the mechanics of information flow and network overlap.
Okay, explain that.
Your strong ties, your inner circle, they generally inhabit the exact same socioeconomic and cultural world that you do.
We live in the same bubble.
Exactly. You consume the same news, you know the same people, you hear about the same opportunities. Your networks are highly redundant.
So there's no new information flowing in.
Right. But your weak ties operate in entirely different external circles. They act as bridges to completely different pools of information.
Oh. Like, if I am looking to change careers, my best friend has likely already shared every job lead they know. We've exhausted that well.
Exactly. But the guy at the dog park works in a totally unrelated industry.
He might mention an unadvertised opening at his firm that I would never have discovered within my own bubble.
Precisely. Job opportunities, innovative ideas, creative collaborations, and serendipitous breakthroughs almost exclusively travel across the bridges formed by weak ties.
That makes total sense when you map it out like that.
And this is where the American system excels. American small talk is arguably the most efficient social technology ever devised for building and maintaining a massive, sprawling network of weak ties at scale.
Because you're constantly adding to the network.
Every time you successfully run the five-step script in an elevator, you are potentially adding a new node to your weak tie network.
Wow.
Cultures that strictly prohibit talking to strangers are inherently limiting their social mobility and leaving immense amounts of social capital untapped.
Okay, so we have engineered a society that maximizes the power of the weak tie. We are a nation composed of millions of loosely connected nodes constantly exchanging data.
Yes,
But that brings us to a devastating contradiction.
a very dark contradiction, yes.
If we are so hyper-connected, how do we explain the findings of the 2023 U.S. Surgeon General report?
The loneliness epidemic.
Yes. The report that officially declared a historic loneliness epidemic in the United States.
The statistics in that report are alarming. It frames chronic loneliness as a public health crisis with mortality impacts comparable to smoking daily.
Smoking daily. That is insane.
Americans are reporting fewer close, reliable friends than at any point in recorded sociological history. The percentage of the population reporting that they have literally zero close friends has tripled since the 1990s.
Tripled. How do those two realities coexist? How can a culture that inherently trusts strangers, that effortlessly exchanges life stories at a gas pump, be suffering from a crippling systemic crisis of profound isolation?
It's the ultimate paradox, and it resolves when you differentiate between breadth and depth in social architecture.
Breadth versus depth.
Right. The American social system is unparalleled at generating breadth. Broad, warm, frictionless surface-level connections are abundant and effortlessly acquired.
You can get a hit of friendliness anywhere.
Yes, but the exact same system is remarkably deficient at generating depth. It struggles to facilitate the slow, patient, often frustrating, and highly unglamorous intimacy that actually sustains psychological health over a lifetime.
It's like an agricultural problem to me.
How so?
We are planting thousands of seeds that sprout instantly, but they have incredibly shallow root systems.
Oh, that's a brilliant metaphor.
Thanks. So the moment a drought hits, like a personal crisis, a health issue, a job loss, those shallow roots can't sustain the plant. We lack the deep-rooted trees that take decades to grow, but can withstand a severe storm.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. And the insidious part of the dynamic is that the easy friendliness can paradoxically crowd out the difficult pursuit of intimacy.
It crowds it out.
Yes. If you can walk out your front door and easily acquire a quick, pleasant dose of social interaction from the cashier, the Uber driver, and the barista,
Right.
you temporarily satiate your social hunger.
You're snacking on junk food so you aren't hungry for a real meal.
Exactly. You might never feel the acute, painful deficit required to motivate you to do the arduous work of building a deep relationship.
Because deep relationships are inherently inconvenient.
They are very inconvenient.
They require extreme vulnerability, they require messy conflict resolution, and they require showing up for someone when it is not easy or fun.
Which is hard work.
It is. And if you always default to the easy 90-second cheat code of small talk, you never build the emotional endurance required for the difficult levels of human connection. We have optimized our society for the pleasant passing interaction, and in the process, we have allowed the muscle memory for 20-year unconditional friendships to totally atrophy.
We have created a society that is simultaneously starving for deep connection while drowning in a sea of superficial interactions.
And to make matters worse, because it does get worse, this incredibly fragile balance between breadth and depth is currently facing a massive, unprecedented technological disruption.
A total disruption.
The entire physical infrastructure of American stranger interaction is being dismantled by the glowing rectangles in our pockets.
The smartphone. It operates as the ultimate impenetrable social shield.
Think back to the physical cues we discussed for broadcasting Do Not Disturb. Head tilted down, eyes intensely focused, body angled inward.
The physical interface of the smartphone mandates that exact posture.
It forces the user to universally broadcast to the room, I am unavailable for connection.
And historically, society relied on liminal spaces.
Liminal space.
That's the spaces in between, the checkout line at the grocery store, the elevator, the
because what else were you going to do? Look at the wall. You talk to the person next to you.
Exactly. Now, because of the smartphone, those incubators have transformed into zones of what sociologists call parallel isolation.
Parallel isolation.
People are occupying the exact same physical coordinates, but they are inhabiting entirely separate digital realities.
The decline in spontaneous interactions over the last 15 years is just staggering. And the irony is incredibly thick here.
Oh, the irony is painful.
The exact technology that was aggressively marketed to us as the ultimate tool for global connection. The device that allows you to instantly video chat with someone in Tokyo or read the morning news from London.
Has provided us with the perfect, socially acceptable mechanism to completely ignore the living, breathing human being standing 36 inches away from us. It fundamentally alters the friction of interaction.
Meaning?
Well, consider those commuters in the Chicago train study who were terrified to talk to their seatmates. A significant portion of their reluctance was likely the physical friction of putting their phones down and breaking their digital trance.
Because why risk the awkwardness?
Right. Why risk the potential awkwardness of an unscripted human conversation when you can simply scroll through a highly curated algorithm designed to deliver guaranteed, fictionless dopamine?
You can't compete with the algorithm. But if the smartphone successfully kills the American habit of talking to strangers, what are the systemic consequences?
They are profound.
Because beyond just a quieter bus ride, what does the act of talking to a stranger actually represent for the health of a nation?
This raises an important question. It represents a foundational metric of societal trust.
Societal trust.
When a culture engages in spontaneous small talk, it demonstrates a baseline assumption that the other people occupying your society are generally benign.
That they aren't enemies.
Right. It signals that the world outside your front door is not inherently hostile. But on a deeper level, it is a fundamentally democratic act.
Democratic? How so?
Because when you initiate a conversation with an unknown person, regardless of their perceived socioeconomic class, their occupation, or their background, you are implicitly treating the person across from you as an equal.
As a peer.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are communicating your presence is worthy of my acknowledgement. We share this civic space, and I recognize your humanity within it.
Wow. There is a quote from our source material that perfectly encapsulates that ethos.
Oh, I know the one.
It is a slightly naive, incredibly sentimental, but deeply, quintessentially American thought. A stranger's just a friend you haven't met yet.
It is a beautiful, optimistic sentiment. But the reality is that sentiment relies entirely on the physical willingness of citizens to look up from their screens, make sustained eye contact, and risk speaking the first word.
Which feels harder and harder to do these days. We have covered an immense amount of sociological and historical territory today.
We really have.
We started by tracing the raw survival instincts of pioneers in covered wagons, desperate to rapidly assess who they could trust on an unforgiving frontier.
The cheat code for survival.
Right. We saw how that evolved into the highly structured 90-second conversational scripts deployed at Midwest gas stations. We traveled globally to examine how that rapid-fire system clashes with the deep, permanent loyalty required by the German model.
And the philosophical premium placed on authentic intimité by the French.
The counterfeit bill. And we unpacked the incredibly delicate, modern balance between the immense networking power of weak ties and the haunting structural reality of our current loneliness epidemic.
The social matrix is a vastly complex, deeply historical ecosystem.
It is. And for you, listening to this deep dive, the goal was to provide you with a kind of sociological X-ray vision.
To see the code.
Exactly. The next time you walk into a crowded coffee shop or step onto a commuter train or find yourself waiting in line at the bank, you aren't just seeing random noise and isolated individuals anymore.
You're seeing the script play out in real time.
You are witnessing the social Esperanto at work. You understand the historical rules of the matrix now, and that understanding gives you a distinct superpower in how you choose to navigate and interact with the world around you.
It's a choice you can actively make now.
But I want to let you leave our listener with one final provocative thought to consider. Building directly on the warnings we discussed regarding where our digital habits are driving us.
Yes, I want to leave everyone with this thought. If our entire American societal model relies on the spontaneous generation of weak ties to spread innovative ideas, to share vital job opportunities, and to fuel social mobility.
Right.
And if the simple act of talking to a stranger is fundamentally a democratic exercise in mutual trust, What happens to the engine of our innovation, our economic mobility, and the fabric of our democracy itself when that gas station man goes entirely extinct?
When he just disappears.
What is the long-term consequence for a culture when we all permanently retreat behind the glowing, impenetrable shields in our hands?
It's a heavy, necessary question to ask ourselves. So, the next time you are standing in a slow-moving line waiting for your morning coffee or waiting for the bus to arrive, consider leaving the phone in your pocket.
Just for 90 seconds.
Look across the counter or across the aisle, make eye contact, and see what happens when you simply say, "Beautiful day, huh?"